Yemen. Often mentioned as a country worn down by years of conflict. But there's so much more to Yemen than the headlines reveal. Behind the stories of war lies a darker, more mysterious side of everyday life that few truly know about. Stay with us as we dive in and uncover the true complexities of this land. Number 13. A nation divided by faith and conflict. Yemen is a predominantly Muslim country, divided between Sunni and Shiite communities, with Sunnis making up a little over half of the population and Shiites close to half. But the divisions here go far beyond religious differences. The divide between Sunnis and Shiites has deep historical roots connected to regional influences and has only grown more intense with Yemen's ongoing civil conflict. Saudi Arabia backs the Sunni-led government of Yemen, while Iran supports the Shiite Houthi rebels. Although Yemen's religious landscape is largely unified under Islam, smaller communities still exist within it like the Ismailis, the Imamites, and even a small number of hidden Jews who adopted Islam publicly for their safety, yet continue practicing Judaism in secret. This divide isn't just an abstract religious issue, it shapes people's everyday lives. Religion shapes Yemen's identity, deeply rooted in its culture and traditions. But beyond faith, how do conservative values impact everyday life? Number 12. Patriarchal structures and conservative culture. Yemen is a nation with a deep cultural heritage, but traditional structures can pose challenges for women and children. Certain societal norms and interpretations of religious teachings contribute to limitations on social freedoms and economic opportunities. In many parts of Yemen, men are often the primary earners, trading goods in local markets, while women focus on managing households and raising families. On average, women care for 5 to 7 children and often face barriers to accessing education and employment. The ongoing conflict has significantly impacted schools, making education difficult to access, especially for girls. Cultural expectations within families can reinforce male authority, with fathers, husbands, and brothers traditionally holding significant influence. Issues like domestic conflict are sometimes treated as private matters, and there is a lack of clear legal frameworks to provide support and protection. What parts of what you have just heard about the current situation in Yemen have surprised or opened your eyes the most? Do you believe that education can be the key to transforming social and economic dynamics in Yemen? Comment below and talk to me. But what happens when these societal expectations intersect with issues of gender inequality? Number 11. Issues of gender inequality. In Yemen, women play vital roles in supporting their families and communities, yet they face hurdles in gaining a voice in politics and public life. Although international efforts aim to include them in peace discussions, their representation remains limited. Many women follow traditional customs, wearing veils and often seeking guidance from male guardians, such as fathers, husbands, or brothers. This practice reinforces a protective role for men, which can impact women's independence and choices. Women, who make up nearly half of the population, encounter gender bias from an early age. Boys often receive more privileges and women may lack protection from mistreatment. This bias affects homes, schools, workplaces, and society at large, placing additional scrutiny on women's participation in public life. In private gatherings, women find opportunities to connect and celebrate away from external pressures, although cultural norms can restrict access to these spaces for outsiders. Social interactions are generally separated, with family events and celebrations often divided by gender. Women are frequently accompanied by a male guardian, or mahram for security. While some view this tradition as restrictive, others see it as essential in a society where security concerns are prevalent. Yemen standing in the year 2024 Global Gender Gap Report highlights ongoing gender inequality. Female literacy is at 35% compared to 75% for men, limiting women's economic opportunities, especially in rural areas where men engage in market activities while women focus on household tasks. The ongoing conflict and economic instability exacerbate these challenges, increasing women's reliance on male relatives. With these gender disparities entrenched, what does this mean for safety and freedom in the public sphere? Before exploring, I have a special 10-second request for all of you listening. If you can help me in any way, just hit the notification bell and hit that subscribe button. It helps this channel so much, and if you do that, I will do everything I can to make this show even better for you. Deal? Number 10. Impact of nightlife on security and the role of organized groups. In Yemen, nightlife once offered a fleeting sense of escape. But as the conflict intensified, the streets came under the influence of various armed groups, replacing freedom with apprehension. Where the government once provided oversight, these groups now impose restrictions, regulate gatherings, and enforce their own rules. Cities like Aden are divided into areas of control, each overseen by different factions. Although these groups claim to protect the community, they often increase their influence by imposing levies on local businesses, including nightlife venues. Some venues have been forced to adhere to these rules, while others have been repurposed for unauthorized activities. The trade of khat, a local stimulant, has expanded significantly, serving as a source of revenue for these groups, alongside the circulation of more harmful substances. With the government struggling and the police capacity stretched, these groups have assumed unofficial enforcement roles, creating a parallel system of authority. For residents, especially young people, nightlife has shifted from joy to uncertainty. Going out at night now involves navigating restrictions and facing checkpoints. One resident from Aden described it as walking on thin ice, sharing how young people are sometimes held for being outside during informal curfews not set by the government. This new reality raises important questions. Can Yemen restore stability in its cities, or has the influence of these groups grown too strong to change? The future remains uncertain as the fight for control continues. And amid this struggle for control, new forms of exploitation and vulnerability have emerged. The question is, who is most at risk? Number 9. Concerns around human exploitation and trafficking. Yemen, a gateway to Saudi Arabia, presents a fragile hope for migrants from the Horn of Africa, but the reality is often more challenging than expected. The journey across the Red Sea is fraught with risks, from overcrowded boats to unscrupulous smugglers. Instead of finding a safe haven, many face difficult situations and exploitation. According to Amnesty International, up to 50,000 migrants cross into Yemen each year, and many encounter individuals who take advantage of their vulnerabilities. Temporary camps, controlled by armed groups, often serve as detention sites. Survivors recount being subjected to enduring harsh conditions, which contrast with Yemen's cultural values of compassion and justice. In areas where state authority is weak, local armed groups hold significant influence. A recent UN report revealed that over 90% of cases are linked to these groups, highlighting a lack of proper oversight. One survivor shared with a BBC journalist, "We thought Yemen would be our path to freedom, but it became a place of hardship." Yemen's prolonged crisis has also left many citizens in tough circumstances. Over a decade of conflict has pushed more than 80% of the population into poverty, creating an environment where negative behaviors can thrive. In the absence of a strong central government and an effective legal system, violations often go unnoticed and unaddressed. Despite these challenges, there are efforts to bring hope. Yemeni activists and NGOs strive to document the hardships and protect vulnerable people, despite facing risks themselves. Médecins Sans Frontières and other humanitarian organizations continue to offer aid, despite facing numerous obstacles. Their work brings hope, but without greater international support, it remains an uphill journey. How can a country so deeply connected to its values endure such hardships? The contrast between beliefs and reality raises questions about resilience and humanity. For viewers, this isn't just another story, it's a call to reflect and take action. Can change come? That question remains open, as the fate of many hangs in uncertainty. But in a country so deeply tied to its values, why is this humanitarian crisis so widespread? And how do these issues affect the lives of millions? Number 8. The ongoing humanitarian crisis and its repercussions. Yemen is facing a serious humanitarian crisis, leaving millions struggling to cope. Years of conflict, economic hardship, and political instability have weakened the country. According to the United Nations, more than 24 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, with over 5 million at risk of severe food shortages. Once stable communities are now in ruins. The country's infrastructure has deteriorated, making it difficult for hospitals, schools, and public services to function effectively. Clean water is limited, and the healthcare system is under great strain. Doctors Without Borders reports that more than half of Yemen's healthcare facilities are no longer in operation. Families are struggling daily to meet basic needs. Diseases like cholera, malaria, and measles are spreading due to a lack of clean water and inadequate sanitation. UNICEF reports that Yemen is experiencing the world's largest cholera outbreak, affecting over 1 million people. The impact of malnutrition is particularly concerning. The World Food Program estimates that nearly half of Yemen's people are chronically malnourished. Many families face tough choices, often prioritizing food for their children over their own needs. Displacement levels are at a record high. The Internal Displacement Monitoring Center estimates that more than 4 million Yemenis have been forced to leave their homes in search of safety. In temporary camps, families live in challenging conditions with limited shelter, water, and health care. They are out of school, and some have lost their parents. This crisis is not just about survival, it is an ongoing effort to maintain dignity and hope in the midst of enduring hardship. Yet there's another hidden struggle that often goes unnoticed: what happens when freedom and human rights are jeopardized? Number 7. Detentions and human rights issues. As different factions gained control over various areas, each group imposed its own rules. This situation has led to reports of arbitrary detentions and allegations of mistreatment in detention facilities. A year 2024 report by Human Rights Watch indicated that many Yemenis are being held without trial, often accused of vague offenses such as supporting rival groups or expressing dissent. These detentions not only affect combatants but also target journalists, activists, and civilians who appear to have limited access to legal support. In northern areas controlled by the Houthis, political detainees and prisoners of war reportedly face challenging conditions, while in the south, under UAE-backed forces, some activists and opposing groups live in constant fear of being detained. One report confirmed that these detentions often occur without adequate judicial oversight. Amnesty International's year 2024 report highlights these issues as ongoing, affecting not only political detainees but also marginalized groups. The current environment has created a climate of fear within Yemeni society. Journalists seem particularly at risk, with over 30 reportedly detained since the conflict began, facing accusations of espionage or being held in undisclosed locations, according to a study by the Committee to Protect Journalists. These challenges have made it difficult for independent voices to report on events accurately. Yemen's fragmented legal system contributes to a lack of accountability. Different groups enforce their own rules, often disregarding national laws and international standards. The UN Human Rights Council's year 2024 inquiry reported that many detainees remain in custody without charges, and efforts to assist them face numerous obstacles. This ongoing situation raises concerns about potential human rights issues. And beyond these human rights concerns, there's another challenge impacting everyday life: a rapidly declining economy. But is there any hope for recovery? Number 6. Economic challenges and increased poverty. Yemen, once known for its prosperity and trade, now faces a severe economic crisis driven by conflict, governance challenges, and political instability. Today, over 3/4 of its population lives in deep poverty, struggling to get by on less than $2 a day. The country's agriculture, crucial to its people, is heavily impacted by persistent water shortages. More than half the population struggles to access clean water, reducing crop yields and forcing many farmers to leave their land in search of better opportunities. Yemen's oil resources, though modest, could help alleviate some economic pressure. However, Outdated infrastructure, administrative challenges, and political divisions have hindered its development. While neighboring nations build their economies on oil, Yemen's financial situation continues to deteriorate. Since the conflict began in the year 2015, its GDP has contracted significantly, with over $100 billion in economic losses. Many basic necessities are now unaffordable for numerous households. Prices have risen sharply due to currency challenges and market disruptions, pushing over 16 million Yemenis into food insecurity. For countless families, the harsh reality means having to choose between essentials like food, medicine, or education. More than 2 million children are currently out of school, with many having to help support their families. Despite these difficulties, there are signs of hope. International initiatives are exploring Yemen's renewable energy potential, particularly solar power, to provide reliable energy in remote areas. These projects, led by organizations like IRENA, offer a pathway towards resilience, helping stabilize rural communities and reducing reliance on costly fuel imports. In a country facing ongoing challenges, the promise of sustainable energy offers a glimmer of hope for a better future. With so many relying on informal work to survive, what kind of risks do these unregulated jobs create for Yemenis? Number 5. Informal economy and its effects. Years of conflict and economic challenges in Yemen have reshaped its economy, with most of the population now relying on informal work. Street vendors and small traders play a key role, selling everything from basic goods to cat, a popular local stimulant. For many, these makeshift jobs are a vital source of income, yet they come without the safety nets of formal employment. According to the World Bank's year 2024 report, informal activities now make up nearly 80% of Yemen's economy. This shift highlights the limited job opportunities and the lack of reliable support systems. However, the unregulated nature of this economy leaves workers without essential protections and fair wages. Cat sales highlight both the necessity and consequences of Yemen's informal sector. While it provides income for many families, its cultivation uses up critical resources like water and farmland, intensifying the food crisis. Additionally, in cities like Aden and Sana'a, influential groups have taken control of key market areas, using their power to collect fees, regulate trade routes, and sustain their operations. Life in Yemen's informal economy involves constantly adapting to survive. People shift between seasonal work, street trading, and occasionally engaging in unregulated activities. Women face added challenges due to social limitations, often restricted to selling goods on the streets. The UN Development Program warns that this lack of regulation increases risks related to human rights issues and unauthorized trade, contributing to greater instability. Despite these obstacles, efforts to create change are emerging. NGOs and international organizations are stepping in with vocational training and microloans to provide alternative income sources. In the year 2024, the International Labor Organization ILO began a pilot project in southern Yemen to help formalize small businesses, although resistance from some local groups and traders remains an obstacle. But as Yemen's economy adapts to survive, what happens to social stability when unrest becomes the new normal? Number 4. Civil unrest and its social impacts. The conflict in Yemen initially started as a political struggle for power, but it has since evolved into a more challenging situation with deep societal impacts. The weakening of central authority has allowed armed groups to gain control, leading communities to face complex changes in relationships and stability. According to the UN Humanitarian Report of 2024, more than 4 million people have been displaced, and the humanitarian crisis shows little sign of easing. Beyond the visible effects, the conflict has significantly strained Yemen's social cohesion. In a country once known for its strong sense of community, people now grapple with anxiety and mistrust, as families are divided and trust in neighbors is shaken. In cities like Aden and Taiz, the divide is evident. Communities are split along political and tribal lines, leaving residents cautious. A local activist described it as a constant sense of unease, unsure if your neighbor or even a family member might be connected to those with harmful intentions. As the central government's authority weakened, militias stepped in, taking on roles of resource control and order enforcement. According to the International Crisis Group's year 2024 analysis, more than 70% of the population now lives under the influence of these groups, each with its own rules and interests. For many Yemenis, navigating this new reality means facing complex and uncertain dynamics. In places like Al-Hudaydah, businesses regularly pay taxes to avoid trouble, and residents face frequent checkpoints that complicate movement. This situation not only pressures everyday life but also has a significant impact on Yemen's youth. With unemployment rates exceeding 50%, many young people are facing uncertain futures. Extremist groups take advantage of this by recruiting disillusioned youth with promises of purpose and opportunity. However, conflict isn't the only threat Yemenis face. What role do environmental crises play in this ongoing struggle? Number 3. Environmental crises and their consequences. Yemen is currently facing a significant environmental challenge that is affecting the lives of its people. Water resources are depleting rapidly, with over half of the population experiencing shortages, particularly in rural areas. Many farmers have reported that wells are running dry and fields are becoming uncultivable due to the diminishing water supply. Agriculture, which is a key part of life for many, is under severe strain, leading to increased difficulties in food shortages. Per capita water availability now stands at around 100 cubic meters per year, among the lowest globally. Desertification is spreading across Yemen's land, driven by factors such as overgrazing, deforestation, and climate change. Nearly 70% of agricultural land is at risk of degradation, significantly impacting many families' livelihoods. In areas once known for fertile land, families are being compelled to move to urban centers or temporary camps, where resources are even more limited. Along the coast, challenges like overfishing, pollution, and ongoing difficulties have heavily impacted the fishing industry. Fishermen in Al-Hudaydah have expressed concerns about decreasing catches, raising worries about their future. Meanwhile, climate change is adding to the complexity of the situation, with flash floods and droughts becoming more frequent. Unpredictable rainfall patterns have damaged crops and homes, as seen recently in Hadramaut, where floods displaced thousands. As resources become more limited, social tensions are rising. Shortages are leading to disputes over water and land in a country already dealing with instability. Families facing multiple challenges are now experiencing increased difficulty in securing food and maintaining stable living conditions. And while international aid flows in, not all of it reaches those in need. Could Yemen's systemic vulnerabilities be a reason why? Number 2. Issues with humanitarian aid and systemic vulnerabilities. Over the past decade, billions in aid have flowed into Yemen, aimed at reducing hunger, providing clean water, and supporting healthcare. Despite this effort, nearly 16 million people still face food insecurity, with 5 million in crisis, according to UNICEF. So where is the aid going? Access remains a significant challenge. Ongoing political conflicts and security issues in Yemen often hinder aid deliveries by blocking roads, closing ports, or limiting distribution routes. Reports indicate that some local authorities and groups may redirect supplies, complicating efforts to reach those in need. This situation leaves vulnerable populations struggling, while aid may not always reach its intended recipients. In addition, instances of mismanagement have been reported. Investigations by the Yemen Data Project revealed that in the year 2024, nearly 1/5 of essential aid may have been diverted or misused. This impacts families directly. One mother in Sana'a, for example, shared with humanitarian workers how she faced challenges in accessing aid for her family. Aid efforts also face logistical difficulties. While food assistance is essential, organizations like the World Food Program highlight the urgent need for clean water, healthcare, and mental health services. In rural areas, water purification is a pressing issue, yet the focus often remains on food supplies. Funding shortages present another obstacle. In the year 2024, the World Food Program reduced rations for 8 million people in Yemen due to insufficient funding, coinciding with rising food prices. A father in Aden described this situation as living on borrowed time. As logistical difficulties, funding shortages, and other challenges continue, Yemen's humanitarian crisis remains complex. Can the global community find ways to ensure aid reaches those who need it most? But even amidst these massive challenges, one issue remains deeply rooted in Yemen's traditional norms and practices. How can the country address the problem of family conflicts? Number 1. Domestic violence and efforts to address it. In Yemen, family conflict remains a persistent issue, shaped by traditional norms that often consider it a private family matter. Deep-rooted beliefs about male authority can contribute to control within households. While 1 in 4 Yemeni women reports experiencing physical or emotional harm, others may face these issues in silence, constrained by fear and societal pressures. The legal system offers limited support, as existing laws may reflect traditional customs and lack clear definitions of this issue. Without strong legal protections, those affected may be reluctant to seek help due to fear of judgment and exclusion. This situation leaves many women feeling isolated with limited access to mental health resources. Cultural pressures to endure quietly can deepen their sense of isolation, making it challenging to address the emotional effects of these experiences. However, there are signs of hope. Organizations like the Yemeni Women's Union are providing safe spaces, legal support, and health care. In the year 2023, activists advocated for legal reforms to recognize family conflict as a crime, sparking important conversations despite challenges. Even amid Yemen's ongoing conflict, international support continues to sustain these efforts. If you liked today's video, please give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel Globe Go. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen now. I am sure you will like this content. Comment below with the next country you'd like to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.